Our top focus this afternoon, it's a ray of hope for 2.5 million Indian LGBT community members. The Supreme Court has referred petitions challenging the criminalization of homosexuality to a 5-judge bench. The larger bench will decide whether the ban on gay sex in India should be reconsidered. 3 judges, including Justice T.S. Thakur, heard in an open court a curative petition against the Supreme Court's verdict in December 2013, which had criminalized gay sex. The curative petition is the last legal resort. The Supreme Court had already rejected a review petition in 2014. Gay rights activists have challenged the Supreme Court's verdict, confirming the validity of Section 377 as part of the Indian Penal Code. The Delhi High Court, remember, had in 2013 exempted gay sex between consenting adults from Section 377 and said the law was against the right to privacy, personal liberty and equality. But that order was overturned by the Supreme Court in 2013. Celebrations reportedly have begun and are being held in Delhi and other metros, welcoming the Supreme Court's decision to reopen the debate.
It's been referred to a 5-judge constitution bench, and in a way this has taken away the step that we were dreading the most, that it would be dismissed outright. And we hope that the court listens to the voice of the LGBT citizens of this country, that our lives cannot be criminalized, that we have a fundamental right to lead our lives with dignity and with respect. So we hope whenever the matter comes up for hearing before a 5-judge bench, it will be great.
Yes, the fight continues, but this is good news in that it has not been dismissed. There are a lot more discussions that need to be had. There's a lot more community building that we need to do. But for today, this is good news.
Let's get a word from our team of reporters tracking this big story for us. We have Athir Khan and Anusha Soni, who's with us live from outside the Supreme Court. We also have Ankit Gupta, who's with us live from our newsroom. I want to come to Athir and Anusha first. Athir, in court, the church lawyer opposed decriminalization of homosexuality. We also know Ramdev's stand and the stand of the Muslim Personal Law Board, which has been stated earlier. What about the government's view, and how is that likely to have an impact in the matter?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, it's a big ray of hope for the people of LGBT community and the activists who are associated with this struggle. We have with us Anusha, who was in the courtroom. Anusha, it is indeed, there was no opposition as far as the government, central government is concerned. There was opposition from the Muslim Personal Law Board, the churches. But what do you make of that?
Well, the opposition, as far as these entire proceedings goes today, was very ancillary. It was a peripheral, opposition that we saw in the court. So much so to the extent that the Chief Justice of India, T.S. Thakur, asked in an open court that is there someone even opposing this petition. Kapil Sibal was leading the arguments from the NAS Foundation. And let me briefly take you, through the arguments that he posed today. One of the very important arguments was that the expression of your sexuality comes under Article 19A, the freedom of expression, Article 19(1)A, which guarantees that right. And also, it is part of personal dignity, a very personal, intricate, private life space that the court cannot take away, because it is a part of the ethos of India, the constitutional fundamental principles that, the country is based on.
So the centre, as far as central government is concerned, there was no opposition. But of course, during the course of hearing now in the constitutional bench, that will be very important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, now the centre will have to come forward and tell the Supreme Court what does it think. This is a new government in place right now. This is the first time that this matter has come up before the Supreme Court. So the first day when the constitutional bench sits, it is going to issue a formal notice to the centre. The centre will have to come forward and tell what is its stand on homosexuality, Article 377. Does the centre think it should be decriminalized? And that will be a major development in this entire case, because that will also tell us that not just the top court, what is also the intent of the existing parliament right now.
It's been a long struggle for the LGBT people. Even after approaching the apex court, it has taken them 2 years. Why this long?
there's a backlog in the Supreme Court right now for about 3 years. If you and I go and file a petition, and unless it's a public interest litigation concerning issues of larger public importance, it will take about 2 to 3 years for that petition to come forward. That is one of the reasons. And for these big matters like the homosexuality, constitutional issues, sometimes Supreme Court goes out of its way, like it has done this time, and gives an open hearing and gives the time. So of course the large backlog of cases serves as a deterrent in this matter.
Anusha, also.
All right, Atul and Anusha, stay on with us. We're getting in more reactions from activists coming from across the country. Let's quickly listen to them, and Atul, I'll come back to you in just a bit. A huge breakthrough for the LGBT community. The Supreme Court referring the matter to a 5-judge bench, which will now decide whether or not the ban on gay sex should be reconsidered or not. We have Anusha and Atul who are live with us from outside the Supreme Court. Also with us, Indrajit Kundu, who's with us live from Kolkata. Indrajit, I want to come to you now. What are the kind of reactions that you're picking in from the city of joy?
Something to just discuss? Well, as far as Kolkata is concerned, we've been here since afternoon. There are people from the community and, the larger community as well who are vocal about this issue. I have two, representatives who have been fighting this battle. Pawan Dhal, you have been, pretty vocal about this for a long time. How do you see this new step that has come about today in the Supreme Court?
Well, this is the very least that we were expecting, and we were hopeful that the case would not be dismissed outright, that we would get another chance to argue our case, and that has happened, and that has sort of restored faith in the system.
How hopeful, Kaushik, how hopeful are you now that this 5-judge constitutional bench is going to once again reopen the debate? You believe that in principle the state should have any role to play as far as one's personal life is concerned?
The state should not have any role to play with regard to one's personal life. And what is very important to understand is that 377 is not a gay law only. It affects even heterosexual married couples. So which is a very dangerous thing that people are not even understanding, that 377 affects their lives too. And I'm really very hopeful and I'm really very happy to be part of the judicial system, and that today the Honorable Supreme Court has stepped up to protect the human rights and fundamental rights of the citizens of India.
Right. So, there are activists who are all, standing here in Kolkata. They're sloganeering. They have placards in their hands. They're saying love is not a crime. Here in one such poster, you can see it's written, I am not straight, I am cured. So, a lot of posters, a lot of creative ways to raise their voice as far as this movement is concerned. Let's just, hear to, the kind of sentiments that are there on the streets. They were pretty curious as to how the Supreme Court is going to decide this time around, and they are relaxed now by the fact that it has now been moved to a 5-judge bench.
Absolutely. Celebrations, they're breaking out in most major metros. Remember, we've also been witnessing several parades in most of these metros celebrating gay sex. A huge breakthrough, or at least a ray of hope for the LGBT community, with the Supreme Court now asking a 5-judge bench to hear the matter on whether or not the ban on gay sex should be lifted. We have Lakshmi Tripathi, transgender activist, who's with us on the phone line. Thanks so much for speaking to India Today, Ms. Tripathi. Your first reaction?
No, I really welcome, and I really welcome the Supreme Court's observation of sending it to the 5-bench constitutional judges, and it reinstates, and it is not about gay sex. It's about sex. It's not only for gay people. It's about sex for every Indian citizen, male, female, gay, lesbian, transgender, everybody. So but of course the most affected, the most blackmailed, the most people who are put towards suicide are the people of the sexual minority. And I really welcome, and this shows that the Supreme Court didn't take upon the morality, didn't take upon whatever, because the Constitution, it has to be on a constitutional morality. It cannot be on the societal morality. It cannot be on some people's ideologies, what they want to preach. It has to be what the Constitution says. It says, and it is all about equality. It is all about freedom of expression. It's all about dignity. It's all about being as a human being, as an Indian. I really thank the Supreme Court, and I really welcome they could have striked it down also, but it is not It's about life. It's about Indians. It's about our own brother, sister, and everybody. I'm no one outside the society. I'm part of the society, and I'm as much Indian as anybody else.
Absolutely, Mr. Bhatti. Thanks so much for speaking to India Today. Activists there welcoming the Supreme Court's decision, asking the 5-judge constitutional bench to now hear the matter. We have Atir and Anusha who are with us live from outside the Supreme Court. Atir, earlier the Supreme Court had observed that repealing Section 377 was up to Parliament. What happens to that view now?
Well, Anusha, earlier the court had observed that the legislature should, sort of look into this matter, and had made it, sort of set aside the High Court order. So now what happens to that? It goes to constitutional bench. What is the way now?
Atir, there's a very interesting legal point, I think, which must be brought forward to the notice of our viewers. Whenever it is about a matter of enforcement of a fundamental right, it cannot be merely delegated to the legislature. It is also incumbent upon the Supreme Court of India, if it sees fit, of course, that whenever there is an outright violation of Article 19 or the right to life under the Indian Constitution, the Supreme Court takes positive steps and makes sure that it doesn't happen. Yes, earlier the judgment had in fact referred the matter to the executive and said that the Parliament should look into it if at all. But that judgment also realized that there was no infringement of a fundamental right that is happening here. Today, what the Kapil Sibal said was essentially the fact that right to expression, the freedom of expression to your own sexuality between two consenting adults is against Article 19 and against right to life. Prima facie, court has agreed to that argument, and now this matter will go to the court, to the 5-judge constitution bench. It will be a very essential, fundamental principle that will be laid down, in the history of this entire struggle of the LGBT.
So this law is quite old. It's 1862 law. Now, what happens if the constitutional bench decides in favor of LGBTs? What happens? Will the court ask the executive to do something about it, or will it strike down the section altogether?
The Supreme Court, the best power the court has is to strike down a section whenever it finds it unconstitutional, infringing any fundamental rights, like it did, for the IT Act earlier last year, when it found that it infringed the freedom of expression, and it also led to, unfair prosecution of people posting online. It struck down NJC because there was, it was violating the separation of powers under the Constitution. That is what the Supreme Court can do. It can go ahead and strike down a section. Then it is incumbent upon the Parliament to replace that section and make sure that the earlier section, the sort of wrong it did, the new section doesn't do that. That is what it has to make sure.
But then what happens in the interim period, Anusha? Section 377 also serves other purposes. In cases of forcibly, where there's an assault. What happens to that then?
Very crucial aspect that you pointed out about 377 taking care of the assault on a man, for that matter, unnatural sex, which is not between two consenting adults. Any provision of the Indian Constitution has a primary and an ancillary function, not just in the way it is written, but the way it has been enforced by the prosecution authorities. So the court, while taking this call, will have to determine whether the primary purpose of this section, the way it has been enforced, the sum and substance of it, if it is violative of these fundamental rights, the court can go ahead and strike down this section. The other ancillary purposes, as you're talking about the assault and other things, the new section that comes into being, that will have to take care of all of these facets.
So maybe it is a ray of hope, but yet we'll have to wait and see how this issue plays out in the during the hearing, the constitutional bench in the apex court.
All right, let's also get a word from Indrajit, who's with us live from Kolkata. Indrajit, we've seen several gay pride parades in Kolkata, in Bangalore and Delhi. What are the kind of reactions that you're putting in? This of course, is just the beginning of another long battle.
Well, that's right. That is the sense that we are getting as far as, activists out here in Kolkata is concerned. They've assembled here in central Kolkata. They are raising slogans. They're saying, of course, it is a long battle that they have to fight, but they're saying that somewhere down the line, it is a positive start because the Supreme Court has finally decided to once again reopen the debate. Posters like these, in their hand, they're raising slogans and they're saying that it's a long battle that they are going to, continue to fight. I have with me Abhinav. Abhinav, it's indeed a long battle. It's a legal recourse that everybody has taken and it has to go on. But what is the feeling that you have right now with the Constitutional Bench being, forwarded this entire argument now?
Well, I'm very hopeful about that. Very, very hopeful. But even if it doesn't happen in the future, we will take the fight to the Parliament and the state assemblies. But I'm hopeful that Supreme Court will redo the gross injustice they have done to us in 2013. So I'm very hopeful about it. Let's see.
What about the role of the executive? What about the role of the legislature? It's our parliamentarians who legislate laws. Do you think, in a sense, the onus is also on them to somehow, down the line, correct the historical mistakes, perhaps that the Indian society as a whole or the Indian legislative as a whole has, made?
The problem is, with our Indian Parliament and the state assemblies, they hide their faces behind the Supreme Court. They will, pass the ball to the Supreme Court, will say, okay, the case is under Supreme Court, but this IPC section 377 should have been amended almost 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago, but they haven't done.
Why do you think that has not happened? Do you believe that is it because it's a minuscule population, as it has been stated earlier on in the court proceedings? Do you think it's because you guys are not considered as a vote bank? Is that the reason why the legislative too also shies away from its a proactive response to such a problem?
Well, I don't really know why, because we are definitely not minuscule minority. In every society, at least 10 to 15% of the population fall under LGBT community. So if you go ahead with the number, then Jains and Christians are, like in number, they are much more lesser than us. I think in India we have a sense of, we don't talk about our rights very ferociously, and we have faced a lot of oppression in the society, so we are very we fear to to talk about us. So I think that's why they don't see us. And then since the notion of sexuality comes with the notion of sex, which is so wrong, I think our politicians are not ready to take up the matter.
If you can elaborate, to our audiences, what is the kind of discrimination, what is the kind of problems that day-to-day, gay men and women face in India, given the kind of laws that are existent right now?
For an example, if I think about it right now, in India still, if you're an open gay person or an open lesbian person, an open transgender person, like we just got our transgender rights like just 2 years ago. Transgender were not even the part of our society before 2014. So imagine the lives of a transgender person before 2014. They are not accepted by the state, not accepted by the society large, so they had to beg. So for a gay or a lesbian or a bisexual person, when they come out to their workplace, they some kind of face sort of discrimination, because it's still considered as crime in society. So even in our family we face a lot of discrimination because it's still considered something as crime in our society.
Is that the reason? Is the legislation a reason why so many people do not come out and accept the reality of their life?
Like if you see from 2009, when the Delhi High Court judgment has come up against section 377, from 2009 to 2013, I have seen in my personal life, I have come out in 2010 openly as an open gay person, because at least now I know that though I will be discriminated by my workplace or by my family, at least my state will not discriminate against me. So that notion of, that notion of confidence has to be there. So the state has to amend
this is a positive step you are saying that will reinstate the faith, as far as this community is concerned, in the state, in the system, in the administration. And that they say, even though it's a long challenge, it's a long, tedious legal battle that they have been fighting, they are hopeful that the Supreme Court will be able to correct the historical mistakes that many of the organs of the state has, done over this community. Back to you.
Absolutely. Indrajit, stay on with us. Let's also get an word from Ankit Gupta, who's with us live from our newsroom. Ankit, this is the first time that a 5-judge bench is hearing a curative petition?
Absolutely, Simi. First of all, as Anusha had told you earlier, only 1% of curative petitions are ever admitted in the Supreme Court. And this is a momentous occasion yet again, because for the first time in its history, the Supreme Court has referred a curative petition to a 5-member constitutional bench. It has never happened before. So this is an unprecedented step that the Apex Court has taken today.
All right, Ankit, Atir, Indrajit and Anusha, thanks so much for sharing the different aspects of this story with us. A ray of hope for the LGBT community in India. The Supreme Court has referred the matter to a 5-judge constitutional bench, which will now decide whether or not the ban on gay sex needs to be revisited or not.
News this deeply disturbing too. Indian intelligence agencies suspect that 4 of the ISIS terrorists killed by the ISIS chief.
केजरीवाली मोटर चली पम पम पम, केजरीवाली मोटर चली पम पम पम, ऑफिस हम जाएंगे साइकिल चलाएंगे कार